Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Today we are going to be working on a cape chisel, or you could also call it an engraving chisel or a inlaying chisel. This is part of this cross job that I'm working on for my client, where I'm going to be inlaying some mokume. Now essentially what I'm going to be making is what I have heard in terminology or technical jargon called before a cape chisel. And essentially it's going to look a little something like this. We're going to have a part, it's going to be swole out. And there's going to be another part that's swollen, like so, and comes up at a nice comfortable angle. And then we're going to have a bevel on the tip of it. And actually this looks horribly retarded, and I apologize. So essentially, that's what the end is going to look like, except less severe. Right. Not like screwing this up on camera. Anyways. So, you say, why does it look so ugly? Well, the whole purpose of this is to take and remove a chip of material out of steel. And you're supposed to be able to take and remove material with these chisels. That's why the bottom is made to sit flat, but the angle here is important for the striking into the hammer to give your hand enough room to grip the chisel in between the workpiece. So this portion here is purely for ergonomics, as where the main cutting edge is the most important thing. Most cold working cutting tools, and I will say most, this isn't always the standard, most cold working cutting tools, this angle here, let's see if I can draw this line. Let's say if you put a flat here, this angle right here is a 30-degree angle. Well, not percentage, but yeah. That's a 30-degree angle for cold work. For hot work, that angle is increased down somewhat to a 60-degree angle. Now, obviously, there's all sorts of different pitches. You could get really specific, but I'm doing this by eyeball and on a belt sander, so chances are it's not 30 degrees. It could be 29 degrees. It could be 26 degrees. It could be 40 degrees. Doesn't really matter. You have to work with whatever pitch seems like it will help cut into the material, but have enough support for your leading edge so it doesn't break off or deform. A 60-degree angle is just kind of the standard for hot work, as where a 30 degree is the standard for cold work. This is on cold chisels of any kind, it's a 30 degree, and on anything like your hot, like slitting chisels and stuff, is a 60-degree angle. As long as you keep 60-30 in your mind, you can make most tools that'll work pretty effectively. There's probably a sweet spot, it may be like 65 degrees for a hot cutting chisel versus, maybe it's 42 degrees for a cold working chisel. Maybe there's somebody's come up with exact math for that. But for a blacksmith's purpose, you don't have to really worry about that. So anyways, that's what we were making today. And we were going to make it out of a length of coil spring. So as you can see, I already got a piece here already flattened out. I did this for another job on this coil spring. I'm essentially just going to work with this. I'm going to forge this out just a little bit more, and then go ahead and cut and grind this to shape, so this way I can have my cape chisel. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay everyone, here we are at the anvil. So the first step in this process is I'm going to spread that material a little bit better behind that original flat spot that I worked down, and just make this a little better transition. Since we are working with coil spring, you definitely do not want to work it down into too cold of temperatures. Notice where I'm stopping with it. That is really about the coldest temperature you want to take and work it. So here's our second heat. And I'm going to start by forging the tip of this, or the first bevel, which would be the 60-degree bevel. And then we'll grind in the 30-degree bevel later on. I like forging these in. It seems to be just as quick as grinding them in, and I don't really see any other benefit in just cutting off a lunk of material and then having a piece of high carbon steel bit laying around that you can't use for anything. So I try to forge to shape as much as I can. As this section here, this cross section gets thinner, you can see it cools off quicker. So you want to be very careful and just kind of tap it gingerly at this point. And, just keep in mind, all while you're doing this, you are working with high carbon steel, as coil spring is. Now on to this next part. I'm going to start giving it a little bit of shape and a little bit of curve for that ergonomic handle, excuse me. You see me refine some of the shape here on the Bic, just trying to clean up that transition a little bit more and get more of a distilled taper to it. And as you can tell, it's not as severely bent like I drew at the workbench. You just need enough space to get your hands on the striking end. Now we went in, we brought the piece up to critical temperature, and we're sticking it in the coal forge's ashes to anneal it. If you don't have ashes from a coal forge, you can use any ashes or sand. After it has been annealed, we'll go ahead and take the time to go ahead and grind in our 30-degree bevel now. As you can see, this doesn't take a whole lot. You could do it all stock removal if you'd like, but that's not necessary. Really all we're wanting to do is just, create nice flat and square up anything that didn't forge out correctly. A lot of times if you're very careful with your forging, you won't need to do a whole lot of grinding. So now we got the forge heating up. We're going to stick the handle end, or the struck end, into the forge first. Reason for this being is you do not want the tip to overheat. So work with the thicker part first. Here's a magnet test, and I'm quenching in water. If you're not comfortable with the steel that you're working with, it's always best to quench in oil first and see if it will hold an edge. If it won't hold an edge in oil, you'll have to go to water, usually. That's just a general rule of thumb. I know there's a lot of guys out there that are really smart on what heat treating does, this, that, and what have you. These are just methods that seem to work for me, and water works just fine. So here I'm just brightening the surface of the steel, and there is still heat in the handle. This is how I will actually temper the piece. There's still enough heat in the handle that it's removing some of the stress going forward. And there's the result. You can see the 30-degree bevel on the front with the 60-degree just behind it and a relatively flat bottom. And then here's a front profile view. Anyways, that's it for today, guys. Let me know what you think of this video, and thanks for watching.